Welcome back to the Coaching Lab podcast. I am Leigh Baker, your host for today's episode, which is all about setting fee structures for health coaches. If pricing has ever felt confusing, uncomfortable, or downright stressful, you are absolutely not alone. Pricing isn't just about picking a number that feels okay. It's about understanding your value, your expenses, and how your business needs to function over time. Whether you're offering one-on-one coaching, group programs, workshops, events, or classes, and wanted to offer a quick opportunity to let you know about ways to have these conversations in person. So this September 25th through 27th, we are hosting our 8th annual coaching retreat and symposium in Estes Park, Colorado. A weekend designed specifically for health coaches who want deeper connection, meaningful growth, and space to focus on their own well-being. And you can find more information regarding the retreat and ways to connect with the Catalyst community at catalystcoachinginstitute.com. And for this conversation, I'm joined by Dr. Brad Cooper and Suzy Destorak. Together, we bring decades of experience in the health and coaching space. We've each built, adjusted, underpriced, raised prices, and learned some hard lessons along the way. In this episode, we're going to talk honestly about our own pricing journeys, what we got wrong early on, and what most coaches forget to factor into their fees, and how pricing should evolve as your business grows. We will also dig into how to confidently communicate your prices and how to think differently about pricing depending on whether you're offering one-on-one coaching or group or event-based services. Whether you're a brand new coach trying to set your first rates or an established practitioner wondering if it's time to recalibrate, this episode will give you practical guidance and a clear framework for making pricing decisions that are both fair and sustainable. So let's get into it. If you have not caught the podcast episode we did at the end of 2025, we talked about business essentials and the ins and outs of some different components. And we briefly brought up fee structures and pricing. And I think one of us even mentioned, we could do a whole podcast episode on this. And we decided to do that. So here we are. And we are going to be talking about fee structures for coaches. And so what that means is we're not just going to be talking about how to pick a number, but we're going to be talking about how to understand the value behind that, overhead expenses, experiences that the three of us have had in the industry over the years. And we each bring kind of a different perspective in that, whether it's in one-on-one in private practice or group coaching or wellness workshops or in the corporate setting. But our hope is that you get some golden nuggets from this and some actionable takeaways to help you feel successful in your business or with your ideas moving forward. So before we dive into all the things, I thought it'd be a great idea to just introduce ourselves and who we are, what our business background is, what we've been up to in that arena, and maybe like our kind of primary streams that we're focusing on. So if Suzy, you'd like to get us started and we'll kind of go around.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. And yes, this is just like getting into the meats and potatoes of how to price and really get this coaching thing going. So yes, I am Suzy Destorak. I am a nationally board certified health and wellness coach. I was board certified in 2020. And before that, I was doing some informal coaching, but really I think of my coaching practices really starting then with that board certification. And I mainly work with busy professionals. So in a variety of different ways, which I'll share more of later, but I just love the field and love empowering new coaches as well to do this.
And I'll give kind of the other side of the coin. This is Brad Cooper, and I'm come through a physical therapy background. So I was managing physical therapy clinics around the country, stepped into a little bit more of a overview healthcare executive type role, and then taught courses around the country on how to enhance your business. So going into physical therapy clinics and helping athletic trainers and others figure out how to price things, how to manage things, what key indicators they should be looking at, that kind of stuff. And then for the last 20 years, we've been running Catalyst Coaching. So excited to be here, bring more of the employee wellness and the organizational wellness side of the equation. So I think it's a nice mix between the three of us, and really looking forward to this.
And my name is Leigh Baker, and I have been a health coach since 2019 and got board certified in 2020. And my background is in public health and health behavior. So I came from kind of a health education and community health setting, and then stepped into private practice right out the gate in the beginning of 2020. and have learned a lot over the years and built a business and consulting and work part-time with a wonderful organization, Catalyst Coaching Institute. And so I have the lens of having kind of a multifaceted approach to business and practice. So really excited to have this conversation and hope that wherever you are in the health coaching space, this resonates, because we do have such a dynamic conversation, I think, with our three backgrounds.
Yeah.
So to get us started, pricing is one of the biggest challenges, I would say. In my opinion, for health coaches, it was the thing that I felt most stuck in out the gate, 6 years ago. And I was like, oh gosh, I'm stepping into this. And there are all these things and there's all this buzz and noise and people telling me I'm going to make six figures. And I'm like, that's not possible. Like, what the heck? But also feeling compelled to try it out, So from your experience, and Suzy, we'll start with you. Why is it so hard for coaches to set fees in this industry?
Yeah, it's really tricky. I think, there's this feeling of feeling inexperienced. And so therefore we feel like we don't have the value. And also I think it's naturally like a caring kind of thing. And we want to help everybody. We just want to make it accessible to everyone. And you can definitely price in accessibility. I certainly do. So there are coaches, having much more expensive sessions than I offer. I feel like that accessibility piece is something that I do offer, but just kind of not having the confidence really in your skills. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges, and just, kind of going from maybe you've been an employee and then now you're going into this ownership mentality thing.
Yeah, that's really good. I think a lot of times, well, let's face it, none of us went into this for the money. Like, you don't go, oh, what's the profession I can pursue to make the most possible? Like, none of us. I remember literally writing in my journal when we started this journey 20 years ago, if I could make half what I'm making in corporate America, I'm good to go. Like that's the life I want. That's the opportunity to be with my family, do the things, stay fit, that kind of stuff. And we fall into that trap, but then we go too far. We're like, well, we want to, and folks, please don't forget the phrase, no margin, no mission. No margin, that's no profit margin. If I'm not making enough money to cover my overhead, my daily expenses, my IT costs, my website, my newsletter expense, you just go down the list. If you don't make more than those costs, then we don't coach anymore. And when we don't coach anymore, the world loses out. The world needs us more than ever right now. And if we're not charging enough to make that possible because we can't pay our rent, then it goes away. And so be careful with that. Now, with that said, when you're first starting either as a new coach or a new business owner, you're naturally going to think, I don't know what I'm worth, or maybe I'm not worth as much as I think I should charge. I get that. Like, we felt the same way. We still feel the same way some days. We've been doing this 20 years. But there's this thing called anchoring, and your clients, it's how the brain works. So if you pick a low price because you feel like that's your current value, I get it. That makes sense. Maybe that is your current value, but don't allow potential clients to anchor to that number. So I'll just throw out some numbers, and we're going to fiddle with a bunch of numbers today. Don't write any of them down as the gospel figure, because we're just throwing numbers out for example, because it depends on where you live, what kind of services you're doing, what do your packages look like. Like, we're going to get into all that stuff, but don't translate the numbers that we throw out as examples as your numbers, because there are so many variables to take into account. But let's just say, for example, that you feel like, I think I'm worth $25 a session right now. I eventually need to have that margin to charge $100 a session to cover all my other expenses and insurance and website and all that kind of stuff. Okay. Cool. Don't go to market at 25. Go to market at 100 with a discount, next 6 people who sign up, anyone who registers in the next 30 days, however you want to phrase it. Don't ever phrase it as, if you want to be one of my first 3 clients, that doesn't work.
No.
But next three or whatever, but you're anchoring to the 100 or whatever your number is, you're charging 25. You're giving them a chance to experience that value, but you're not diminishing your future opportunity. So just a couple of comments on that level, and hopefully that gets you started in the right direction.
Yeah, I think those are two really good perspectives. And also, I think, Suzy mentioned this a little bit with like the confidence piece. I know when I first started out, even thinking about as a private practice, what in the heck am I going to charge? I almost got stuck in thinking like it had to be perfectly executed. And I had this pull or pressure to feel like I had to have all the things, like one-on-one services, workshops, events going on, marketing. And then like, I just got analysis paralysis and like engaging in all of this information and taking it all in and not moving forward. So I think it can be hard when there's so much noise to say, okay, where do I start first? So I'd love to hear maybe from Brad, from you with market research. I know you talked a little bit about the market and kind of where to enter yourself in the market and don't sell yourself short. And I think sometimes health coaches are like, where do I even start with market research? Like, what is that? And how can I figure out, okay, where do I enter the market and what is sufficient for me and my experience and background?
Yeah, the really cool thing about this whole process is you have a mentor sitting there waiting to visit with you every single day, and they're free. And they sometimes don't tell you what you want to hear, but sometimes they surprise you. And that mentor is the market. The market is always right. They might be discouraging. They might be irritating. They might be not making sense because you know how much value you offer and no one's listening. Or the market tells us if we're right. Now, it doesn't tell us that our pricing is perfect and that we're not worth more or not worth less, because there's a combination there of supply and demand. If you are not telling anyone what you do and you're throwing a price out there and nobody contacts you, is that because your price is wrong? I don't know. No one's looking at it. So there's no demand. So that affects, again, supply and demand always applies to everything. So if you're putting your price out there and it doesn't, and you're like, I'm pretty sure this is based on, I've compared this to massage therapy or one-on-one Pilates or one-on-one massage or whatever it is, these different price points that you can compare coaching to, and you feel like you're in that sweet spot, but nobody's calling you, then that means you're not getting yourself out there. And that side of there's many aspects of the demand curve, but that aspect of the demand curve, the ability for people to know you exist, is not driving high enough. And so your supply is not being utilized. So that's just an example that margin, the mission, the mentoring that's involved in giving you all these M's that the market gives you feedback on. And then the last piece I just want to throw out there is I'm a huge Tom Peters fan. He wrote the very first trillion selling business book. I think it was called In Search of Excellence, early 80s. It's all in your bookshelf, I promise you. But he talked about the idea of ready, fire, aim. And I love that concept because what we usually do is ready, aim, fire. And he says, oh, no, we don't. We do ready, aim, 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 and we never pull the trigger. And so so part of this process is get yourself out there. Maybe your website's not totally done. What could you get out there in the meantime? Maybe you don't have all your systems dialed in. What could you do in the meantime? So it's go ahead and fire. And then adjust. So the aim comes after the fire instead of before as a stall tactic because we're not confident. I'm not confident either. I struggle too. I'm just like, I don't know if this is going to work. We just launched a cool new thing trying to help guys in their 60s and 70s figure out what does the second half of life look like. And we launched the first one yesterday, and I was totally lacking confidence going in that, like, is this the right approach? Is this going to work? Is anybody going to care? The market will tell you.
Very good dissertation there, Dr. Cooper. Oh my goodness. We can see your MBA your PhD work there, I would say one of the things that I did not set enough time to, and it gets into that firing and not doing the work that's going to build the client base. And that's just getting your name out there. Like for me, it was getting a group of people, like networking groups and even online groups where I am constantly engaged in finding my clients and finding my people. So that is a really big one, because you can have the perfect program, and if nobody knows about it, guess what? It is not going to happen. And then the other piece that I was going to say is, although you don't want to undersell yourself and don't want people to anchor you at a low price, you can also adjust your price. I up my prices for sure, every so often. And I think that is also an important thing to keep in mind there.
Well, and that's your supply demand popping its head back in and going, Suzy, you're not charging enough, because you look at your schedule and you say, my clients can't get scheduled, because I'm doing this many hours a week, I have this many sessions, and there's more demand. Oh, that means your price is too low. Ding, 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 ding. So it's like an there's a feedback loop on your pricing. If you have a bunch of spots on your schedule, you're either not out there or your price is too high. If you don't have any spots in your schedule, then time to up that thing a little bit more, because and maybe you give plenty of notice. You don't throw off your current clients. So maybe you say to all your current clients, hey, everybody, the demand is high. I don't know how you want to phrase it, but a lot of people are coming on board that weren't a year ago or 6 months ago or whatever. I'm going to keep your price steady for the next 6 months. I just want to give you a heads up that in August, blah, 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 blah. So you're not like, hey, I'm great, here's my new price. You're simply saying, we're going to be increasing things. I want to hold you all steady for the next 6 months, but I just want you to know what's coming. So they're prepared for that.
Good advice there.
Yeah, I like that you bring that up. It's like bringing your current clients along with you as you adapt in business too. That community approach.
Yep.
And I was thinking about back to the market research side of things, because I think Brad mentioned, market analysis and listening to the market and seeing, what information it's giving back. And, I think about the specific kind of research that I did or where I looked for it. And I think Brad mentioned like kind of comparing massage therapists or like personal trainers. And, I did some of that analysis. I will also say that I went to like my small business center in my hometown just to bounce ideas, because I was like, okay, I need someone to talk to about this with rather than it rattling around in my brain or on my notepad. So I kind of talked through a little bit of a plan when it came to like, okay, I'm going to do this market research. Then what the heck am I going to do with it? So, I looked at practitioners in the area. I also looked at how many years they've been in business, knowing that I was a new coach, at that time. So kind of like a new practice, right? So I looked at a variety of different practitioners in the health and wellness industry, whether they were self-pay or not, and also looked at the location in the country of where I was at and average salaries. And so kind of just looking at, okay, what's the market potentially going to support here? And then what has been successful around me. So I'd say that's more a granular process that I did. And I did eventually take action on it, because I did come up with fees and they were posted on the website. So, but I would say that that's like a specific recommendation from like a market research approach. And I'm curious if you all had additional pieces of helpful things that you'd found along the way when it comes to research or analysis.
When we first started, and so this is 20 years ago, and we were offering coaching to employers, we were one of the very first companies ever to make coaching the central element of those employee wellness services. There were a lot of folks doing other things, biometrics, HRAs, webinars, that kind of stuff. But we weren't the first, but we were certainly among the first to make that the priority. So there weren't comparisons. Or the comparisons were so ridiculous because they were built on models. The PEPM, if you're going to work with employers, you'll at least hear that term bantered about. We do not use that anymore, and I can get into that at some point on a different podcast. But that's a model the benefit consultant's going to ask you about, the HR director, whoever it might be, and it's per employee per month. And the old models, the pre-Catalyst models, were built around incredibly low participation. So they could charge almost nothing because no one was using the coaching. So there's no cost. So these companies offering, it was kind of a hilarious model because it's like companies thought they were getting this amazing deal. And then when you look behind the curtain, you realize it was almost Wizard of Oz. Like no one's using the service. So you're just handing them money to this wellness companies. You're just handing them money for something that's not happening so that you can say you have a wellness program. And we came in and said, no, we're going to charge a lot more. So we were charging 8, 10 times more than all our competitors. And that was a hard conversation to explain. And yet it's a reminder to all of us, you're not for everyone. We were not at that point for the company that simply wanted to say we have an employee wellness program. We were only for the companies that said we want to help our employees have better lives. And we're going to look at the numbers with you, Brad, break this down, take PEPM, make sure that we're analyzing the right things, and then make a decision. And so remember that, folks. You don't need 1,000 clients. I don't know who you're trying to work with, but if you're a solo practitioner, you don't need 1,000 clients. What do you need? 20, 30, 35? So you're not trying to be for everyone. That's not your goal. Give yourself the freedom to move through that. And then the other thing I want to throw out, because I just don't want to forget this, and this is how we, in terms of answering your question, Leigh, we figured out our pricing from the ground up versus the top down. No, that's not true. We compressed the two. We created a pricing sandwich. So we looked at our costs. We said, what does it cost for the website? What does it cost to pay our coaches? What does it cost for liability insurance? What does it cost for? So we just went through IT, like everything. We laid that all out. And we said, if we had this many clients, what would that cost us per client? So that gave us for us to break even, not to bring a penny home, but to break even, it's got to be here. And then we went reverse and we said, our clients are used to the price being way down here. How far down could we get that pricing? And how could we structure the model so that they could keep their pricing reasonable that doesn't put us out of business? So we kind of compressed the two. But folks, don't forget all your expenses. I talk to so many coaches that they're like, well, I charge this amount. How'd you come up with that? Well, I just kind of picked a number. Okay, cool. Does that include your cost of liability insurance? Does that include your IT? Does that include your marketing? Does that include your, and then does it include your other time, your non-coaching time? The general recommendation I make for folks in terms of your time is assume about 50% of it is spent coaching and 50% of it is spent doing everything else. And there's a lot of everything else. And the longer you've been doing this, the more efficient you'll get, the more your systems. So maybe it shifts to 70-30 or 75-25. But don't price yourself based on, oh, that's a lot per hour. But it's not per hour. It's per half hour because you have to do all these other things to keep your business running.
Wow, that's such an interesting thing when you brought in that perspective of looking at like your overhead, essentially, it almost made me think of a product-based business. Like my husband and I own a product-based business and I help him on the back end of that. And I thought that service-based, and this might be a rabbit hole for us guys, so bear with me here, but I've always thought service and product-based businesses were pretty different in the way that they approach. And I think like their finances, and I think it's because from an expense perspective, you don't necessarily have as much overhead with service-based in my mind,
yes,
as you do with product-based.
True.
However, you still have expenses, so I think that's the thing is, if we can frame it in a way of thinking like still considering all the expenses without just what's going to make me fit in the industry, right, then it might result in more sustainability and more fulfillment for us because we are able to say, okay, this is what I need to make in order to have this be successful and have my livelihood, bills be paid and, mortgages paid and things are feeling foundationally okay within my own space.
Well, and
so
it makes
interesting. I never thought about it that way.
What it causes you to analyze every expense, because if we're doing the sandwich and our clients can only afford this rate or we're not going to exist, there'll be no demand. And we've got to be here bringing the bottom up to be able to pay our rent every month, we can't change the clients. So we've got to analyze the internal. So that's why, and I'm sure most coaches are like this, we ran our business and continue to out of our home. I was sitting at the kitchen table. Our kids were 20 feet away. We didn't have a big house. When the phone would ring with a potential client, I would say, phone, and the kids would grab the dog, turn the music down, stop dancing for 4 minutes. And like, it was just like the family got it. And you do what you've got to do because you've got it. You can't control the demands price until you raise your value. We were young. We didn't know what to do with that. And so you've got to keep your expenses down. But you can't shrink your way to greatness either. And so it's balancing those two. We spent a boatload on our website when we first started. I mean, like, we were this little teeny company, didn't know what we were doing, and we went out and spent all this money to create our own website because we didn't want to use somebody else's. We wanted to be unique. We had some unique needs, and we just like swallowed hard. We like because to do what we wanted to do, we had to spend $30,000 to get that thing started in 2007. So that would be about $100,000 now, and that we felt like that was our only choice. But that may not apply to the majority of people listening to this. So it's a matter of thinking, I can't come across the marketplace as cheap because nobody wants that. You're providing this important service, but we don't want to spend money on, because everyone's going to offer you stuff, everybody. I'll sell your coaching. Sure you will. I'll build your website. Sure, maybe. So just be super careful that when you make an investment, it's not because you're trying to avoid it. I guess that's the best piece of advice I can give you, is because we're coaches. We don't want to sell. So somebody else to do that for me? Cool. Take all my money to do that for me. Don't fall into that trap. It's an easy one and everybody's offering it to you.
Absolutely. That gets into the click funnel things that everybody offers online. And it's like, oh my gosh. Yes. Stay away from those. The other thing that I have always really believed is that I am not going to go and buy a tool that's going to help me with my business or, a new thing for my website until I've actually, proven that it's going to work. Like, I'm not going to go and invest in a huge program and build a huge program and spend a lot of money unless I have some evidence that that is what the market wants and it's going to be a needed service. So that was just another thing that kind of came to mind there as well. And I think one thing that, I don't know, Leigh, this might apply more to what you're doing as well. But being like a solopreneur that I am, one of the ways that I really helped to bolster my income and that I do is I do a lot of different things. So like my events, I charge a lot more for the events that I do, like my cooking classes and things like that. And that really is a good balance to the one-on-one coaching.
And a feeder.
So that's kind of just...
my guess.
Well, exactly. It's like, okay. And then, there's a couple of products that I sell as well. So I think that those aspects also are very exciting to me because I am somebody that just likes to be doing a lot of different things and helping people in different ways. So that's kind of an idea to have multiple streams of income.
Yes. I think I said in the beginning that, I got stuck in like analysis paralysis of wanting to have like all the things. And so that I like backwards on that to say, like in the beginning, we kind of want to focus on like one step at a time, right? Versus like the whole mountain. We're like, okay, let's like move the whole mountain here versus like, so however, I do think, as I've learned over the years, and Suzy, like it's great that you mentioned this, is business can look different than you intended it to do, intended that it would be, and that's okay. And it can look like multiple streams of things that you also enjoy that are passionate about that also provide stability with your income. So I know that's a can of worms, but I would wholeheartedly agree because I think when I first started out, I got an office while I was working still at the health department. I got an office for clients to meet one-on-one with them because I was like, my private practice. Like, I'm going to meet in person with my one-on-one clients. And this is how this business is going to be. This was pre-pandemic. No one opted to meet me in person. They all opted to meet me online. And I had an office that I was spending money on. And then I got one independent contract. And I was like, is this how it's supposed to look? Like, aren't I supposed to be getting more one-on-one clients? And then I offered a workshop. And I was like, is this really how it's supposed to look? And now here we are. I manage several different things, and I love it because it allows me to be creative. It allows me to have different types of income streams. It allows me to use my brain in different ways. And if I had told myself that wasn't the right way to go because business should look one way, then I would never be where I am now, and I wouldn't have the stability. So I think, not like going off into a rabbit hole, but I love that you bring it up because it hits my heartstrings of like, when we're thinking about business and finance and fee structures, we can have this hope and possibility of what we want for our business themselves in the future and be open to that, and also take things one step at a time. And we'll get to where we are, right, organically too. So
keep taking steps, keep moving forward. Don't get stuck in the analysis paralysis.
Yes.
And be pliable. I mean, you're talking about being pliable. That's huge. The world doesn't stay the same. Your business can't stay the same. We've changed so many iterations of our original we changed our name, 5 years ago from our original U.S. corporate wellness because we were going to be all things wellness to all people in corporate America. And over time, coaching bubbled to the surface of this is what people wanted from us. This is what organizations were coming for. They didn't want our HRA. They didn't want our website. They wanted our coaching. That's where our gift was. And so that's when we changed our name. So you're adjusting to what the market tells you, and you're reassessing that just like you would your health on an annual basis, your finances on an annual basis, maybe your marriage or other things that you're involved with. So yes, stay pliable, everybody.
100%, which I think brings us to, I think, the meat and potatoes that people might be on the edge of their seat for about pricing for these different things that we've been talking about. And not necessarily us saying, like Brad mentioned, like you should charge $400 for a package of coaching. But I think when it comes to one-on-one coaching or group coaching or events, the way that we approach that pricing can look different, right? Because there are different things and factors and overhead that we consider that are different from one-on-one to events. So I'd love if, Brad, if you wanted to start off with maybe the events side of things, because we have a retreat coming up in the fall on maybe how you approach maybe events or workshops or group coaching, because you just kicked off that other group, to give listeners kind of an idea of maybe how that's approached differently than maybe the one-on-one side of things that Suzy and I could speak on.
Yeah, the first thing is be clear on your vision. So you mentioned the retreat. Our vision for the retreat is we just can't lose money. That's not a revenue stream for us. That's not a thing that we're like, woohoo, let's take over the world with our retreat funds. It's just, we can't lose money year after year and keep doing it. So we price that knowing who our audience is, knowing coaches like so need that time together and that chance to get out in the outdoors and yet the money's not there. So we've done that kind of the same way. How can we keep our costs way down through our approach to speakers and coordination and whatever we take on or Leigh's involved with, but we're not getting 17 people. So we price that one for that vision. Now, our company, I talked through kind of how we price that. We need to make sure that it meets the market and it allows us to cover our costs and provides a living for kids going to college and all that kind of stuff. So that's how we did that one. So think about, is your vision, this is a lost leader? So I'm doing this. We did something years ago, what was it called? Small Employee Wellness Workshop. That was it. And we would rent an office or a presentation area, and we'd send it to all the companies in Colorado, and we'd have 20 people show up. Well, we just wanted to cover our costs because the goal of that wasn't to become the master program developer. It was to have 2 of those 20 companies say, ooh, we want to hire you for coaching. So decide, is this a revenue stream? In which case you need to go through all the analysis that you did with your other stuff. What's our cost? What are we putting to it? Da, da, da. What's my time? How do I? Or is this a lost leader? Is this the milk that's in the back of the store that we have everybody walk through the grocery store, and as they're getting their discounted milk, they also pick up overpriced cereal and snacks and blah, 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 blah. So decide, what is it? Is it the retreat, where this is just something you're called to do and you can't lose money? Is it a lost leader, that this is a primary driver of your marketing and you, again, can't lose money, but your goal is not to create revenue, but you also don't want to price it at zero? I did a mission trip years ago with a bunch of American docs, and we discovered a lesson I will never forget. We were charging, it was free. Come see the American doctors and nurses for free. And nobody came. We were in a third world country. Nobody came. And then we started charging what was the equivalent of 1 penny, and people walked 3 miles in bare feet and took, whatever hours and carried their stuff to come see, because it costs something. So even for your lost leaders, even for we're doing this as a mission, even for those things, charge something. When it's free, it's worth nothing. And that's how we do things in this country. So just a few things along those lines, maybe something sticks for people.
Something stuck out for me that I'd love Suzy's thoughts on is in the one-on-one coaching industry, like when you're, individually connecting with a client, there is this idea and conversation around complimentary sessions. So like you have like a session to see if coaching's a good fit. And I think that there are mixed opinions and reviews about, do you charge for that? Do you offer it truly complimentary, but there's like no strings attached? You kind of see how it goes. So Suzy, I'm curious kind of if you would like to speak on that. Yeah, because
absolutely. I think that's a great question, Leigh. Thanks for bringing that up, because I have to say that that's where I got a little bit hung up at the beginning too, because I gave away too much value on a complimentary session. And so what I do now, I think it's important to me. I think it's important that we are a match, that I'm a match for my client and my client's going to be a match for me as well. So I like to do a 15-minute discovery session. And in that session, I'm asking a lot of exploratory questions to kind of gauge where they are in the whole change process and if coaching is really a right place for them at that time. My goal in that is that we build a rapport and decide together if we're going to be a fit to be able to coach together. And the other thing is, I definitely want them to walk away with some value. So it is absolutely my goal for them to walk away with some value, but not to create a coaching plan. That is not the function of a discovery session. The discovery session is just for us to learn a little bit about each other, to make it valuable, of course, in some way, like a small step that they can do. But ultimately, that is where we're going to just kind of open up what the options are. And for me, I like to offer 2 upfront options, which are to do individual sessions. That's going to come with a little bit of a higher cost. Or if somebody is more committed, which most people are, honestly, and then we'll do a package rate, which is very slightly discounted, but it is discounted a little bit. And so those are kind of the ways that I move forward with that.
We jump in on the complimentary session because, Suzy, I love the way you're approaching this. And I think that's the words from a wise, seasoned, experienced, high-demand coach who's figured out how this all fits in there. I think an alternative that we've played with and we're actually doing a little bit more of in the coming 6 months is we know I can do a 5-hour webinar on coaching of all the ins and outs and the research and why it works and the psychology behind it and all. And it doesn't matter as much as one session. The lived experience of coaching is one of the most powerful things I've ever experienced personally, and I've ever seen other people experience as well. So you've got to know your numbers. If you're going to offer a full complimentary session, I love how Suzy's doing it, and it works perfectly for her level of experience. One of the things that you might want to consider as an alternative is to offer a very limited number. Don't put yourself out there on the web. Free session, call me. People people that are serious, people that are willing to register and fill out some paperwork first. Make sure they have some skin in the game before you do your free session. But then when you do your free session, what's the return? Are you 3 out of 10, 5 out of 10 that sign up for these packages that Suzy's talking about? So that's just another option. I think that is, when you're talking about marketing expenses, you can spend money on Google AdWords. You can spend money on flyers. We got our first clients from some just random. We stuck a flyer in a triathlon I was doing in Boulder, Colorado. And I don't know, somebody I'd never met in my life before called us, and that was our first client, and it changed everything. So you spend money, you spend time, you invest in those things a little, but my guess is your biggest marketing return is coaching serious potential clients. And that whole sentence is important. Random people off the web, people that just are connected with you, through 3 layers, through Twitter or something. That's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking about people that have been following you, know you, are willing to get some skin in the game. Now we do it. The other alternative you might consider is make it a donation. So I am going to provide you a free coaching session, but you're going to have to pay. It's free in terms of my revenue. I'm going to donate the 100% of the cost that I'm charging you to this special organization that I care about. And so they know you're not doing it for the money, but they're also putting a little skin in the game. And maybe you charge a reduced price for that. So maybe with our $100 rate we talked about earlier, you just say, I'm going to charge you $25. That's going to the women's shelter over here in our local community or whatever. So that's just another alternative that creates a little more skin in the game, but no sense that you're garnering revenue from it.
Great idea with that.
Idea.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's
up. Like,
Me too.
Space with like-minded individuals with varying experience. Always, if even
let it roll, right?
For those on the podcast. So one thing I was thinking about, Brad, when you were talking, and Suzy too, about pricing, we've been talking a lot about what we do on the internal side and the factors at play that ultimately allow us to feel confident in establishing a price or a fee structure, what we're willing to offer as a value that can then funnel into, a paid client in the future. I'm curious what your thoughts are on how to confidently communicate that, because that is something I hear from health coaches of like, okay, I've got this plan and I've got these fees, and now I'm afraid to tell the world, or I'm afraid to have conversations, or even in that complimentary or discovery call, the last 3 minutes where the client's like, okay, so how much is this going to cost me? And then we all cringe like, oh gosh, we have to have a conversation about money. So I'm just curious what, tidbits or advice that you all would give to people, maybe one perspective of someone just starting out, and then someone who still feels, even in the industry after being in it for a while, maybe a little uncomfortable sometimes in those conversations.
Yeah, that is, for some reason, that wasn't as hard of a thing for me personally. I think I personally have such a high value on, well-being and things like that, but definitely it does come up. And so I will oftentimes ask the question, what do you think it would be worth to you if you felt more energized and we're able to get back into not having the aching knees and doing some of those things? Like, I honestly ask that question because it does get people thinking about it. One thing that I would add in here as well is that in my opinion, it's very important to make sure that you do get paid before you coach. And this was obviously, as most hard lessons are learned the hard way, because, make sure that they fill out, that they do your agreement, and that you are paid before you do the service. So that would just be kind of my advice on that one a little bit in there. So the more, if you think about it, paying for the value that you're getting from a service that you're engaging in is really making it it's making it more worth it for you. Like once you pay the money for that, your experience has already started.
Yeah, skin in the game is valuable. Leigh, I don't know how to answer this because of all the people in the world, I should have this figured out, and I don't. Like, I still struggle with it. I still want to, and I don't know if it's the idealist in me, like, it's just going to work out. I don't know, but I don't have a good answer for you on this. I think Suzy's done a good job of saying, hey, you got to clarify the value you're giving. And when you super believe in that, I think maybe I approach it rationally that this is just what it is. And I'm not for everyone. And if this works for you, fantastic. And if it doesn't, that's totally fine. It's nothing, not personal. And we offer these group sessions that could be an alternative that might give you some value. That's just not the one-on-one. So I guess maybe that's how I've approached it, but it's not easy. I think we're all like in this to change the world, and we have to charge to be able to keep changing the world, but I still don't have this figured out.
It's tough. And I mean, and I brought it up because, I think it is something that I've talked to health coaches in this community about, is like this, and then like market, like the coaching, most coaches are like, that's the part I feel the best about. I feel the best about the coaching, the marketing, the finances, the networking. And they're like, that's where I'm feeling the weight of the world. Right. So that's, I think speaking authentically about that and remembering, it's not always easy. And Suzy, you mentioned too, like that you've always, felt a values driven approach to those conversations, asking the client or individual, what value they tie to those improvements in their health and well-being, and exploring that in the coaching mindset. I think it's a great way to do it. And then just being really clear on the value you're providing and what you're providing, and being confident in that, and knowing not everyone's going to say yes.
Nor should they.
Those who say no might have a very vocal no, right? Yeah. Like they might be very vocally no, or they might have opinions about it, and that's okay, right? That I think being okay with not everyone being our client, or our best business friend in the room, or what have you. I think it's the reality, right?
It's
everyone
another
said yes,
place.
That'd be great, but.
It's actually another place where those options come into, like maybe a group session would be better to start off with, or maybe we do something not quite every week, or do something on a smaller level. So those kind of options can be good too.
And I was just thinking, as you guys were talking this through, I think one of the things that probably helps me is perspective. So we talked about the perspective of, this isn't for everyone. So you're not trying to have your price work for everybody. That's not the goal. It's never been the goal. It will never be the goal. And then when you take in perspective of, okay, an attorney with a third of the education that I have is charging this much per hour. That doesn't mean I'm not going to charge $1,000 an hour, but come on, Brad. Like really, you've got 16 years of post-high school education. Attorney has 3. No, they don't. They have 7. So what is wrong with you? So it's that perspective, and then looking at the market and saying, this is what some of the things we mentioned earlier, one-on-one Pilates might cost. So similar types of services, and people are paying for that, and they're paying consistently for that. And so there is a market for what you're doing. And then we look at Starbucks and we go, how much are people spending on Starbucks? Like, seriously, this is not more valuable than that to them? Then I'm not for them. And I think those levels of perspective can be very, very helpful.
100%. And I know we're, being in the business world, we've got clients to see and things to do, and we could talk about this all day. But I've got we're wrapping up. And
one thing I want to get in here before we wrap, because this will change your world as a coach in terms of your pricing. It's a 2-word phrase, and it's the phrase up to. And what I mean by that is you're charging per month or per quarter up to 3 sessions, up to 5 sessions, up to 7 sessions, whatever it is, up to. If they pay for that package and they're committed to it. And then they get off track and they're like, oh, I guess that's not going to work. I'm too busy. That's their issue, not yours. You will have this up to change your world when it comes to finances and your packages with coaches. So don't lose that phrase.
I love it. Up to. So Brad, thanks so much for being on the Coaching Lab podcast, which you've also been hosting for a long time. And I'm grateful to be in this space with you and to have you and Suzy and myself talk about this. I think it's a wonderful conversation and a continued one that can continually adapt over time. So thanks so much for your time.
It. Thanks, both of you.
Pricing isn't just a business decision, it's a sustainability decision. The right fee structure allows you to show up fully for your clients, build a business that supports your life, and continue doing this work for years to come. If today's episode sparked questions for you or made you realize it might be time to revisit how you're pricing your services, we'd love to continue the conversation with you in person. This September, from the 25th through the 27th, we're hosting our 8th annual Coaching Retreat and Symposium in Estes Park, Colorado, a weekend designed specifically for health coaches who want deeper connection, meaningful growth, and space to focus on their own well-being. We're also offering a business-focused pre-session conference where we'll dive deeper into topics like pricing that we discussed today, business models, and building a coaching practice or offering that's both aligned and sustainable. Whether you're early in your coaching journey or years into practice, this weekend is an opportunity to step out of the day-to-day, connect with other coaches who truly get it, and walk away with clarity, tools, and renewed energy for the work that you do. Thank you for spending time with us today on the Coaching Lab podcast. If this episode was helpful, be sure to share it with another coach who might be interested, and we'll see you next time.